August 14th, 1974, early morning. Eleni Elinas wakes up in her home in Varosha, Cyprus, to the sound of air raid sirens. Her family moved here just 8 months ago. The hallway is still full of unpacked boxes. Within a few hours, they will leave, forever. They grab what's within reach, leave food on the stove, a dress in the closet, car keys on the kitchen table. They think they're going for a few days, just until the military situation calms down. 50 years have passed. Eleni never came home. Her house is still standing, empty, behind barbed wire. Here's the thing, Varosha is not a freak accident. Right now, while you're watching this video, 5 modern cities are living through their last normal day. They just don't know it yet. When we hear ghost town, we picture something distant. 19th century ruins, abandoned mines, the Wild West. But what if this is happening right now? What if a city's last normal day isn't in the past, it's in the present? What if it's already running, and nobody has stamped a date on it yet? In Venice, the last real local is packing up right now, because his apartment was turned into an Airbnb. In Japan, a teacher is locking a school for the last time. It had 2 students, the last ones. In Nauru, a man stares out at an empty sea. 80% of the island no longer exists as livable land. Every dying city has its last normal day. Sometimes it happens in a matter of hours. Sometimes it stretches out over decades. But it always exists. The question worth asking is this: what was your last normal day? And did you know it at the time? Chapter 1. Varosha, Cyprus. Last normal day, August 14th, 1974. In the early 1970s, Varosha was the French Riviera of the Eastern Mediterranean. 39,000 residents, 89 hotels, 1,000 shops, 21 banks, 7 churches. Elizabeth Taylor, Brigitte Bardot and Richard Burton vacationed here. Tourism accounted for 57% of Cyprus's entire GDP. This was a city that had everything. To understand how it died, you need to understand what Cyprus was. After gaining independence from Britain in 1960, the island lived with a constitution that never really worked. Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots couldn't agree on how to share power. Tension had been building for years. In July of 1974, a Greek military junta staged a coup on the island, aiming to annex Cyprus to Greece. Turkey responded with a military invasion. July 15, 1974, the coup. July 20th, the first phase of the Turkish military operation. By August, Turkish forces were closing in on Famagusta, the island's second largest city, on the outskirts of which Varosha stood. On the morning of August 14th, Eleni Elinas heard the sirens. Her family gathered their things in a matter of hours. They took what they could. They thought they were leaving for a week. Most residents thought the same. The residents of Varosha left within hours. The Turkish army moved in and immediately fenced off the entire district with barbed wire. Not to settle it, but to use it as a bargaining chip in negotiations over the island's reunification. In 1984, the UN Security Council passed Resolution 550, explicitly prohibiting anyone other than the district's lawful inhabitants from settling there. The resolution is still in force, and still nobody is enforcing it. 50 years have passed. The furniture is still inside the houses. The Toyota dealership still has cars from 1974 on the floor. Concrete slabs hang from construction cranes above unfinished hotels, never laid. Trees have grown through the walls. In 2020, Turkish Cypriot authorities partially opened 3.5% of the territory to tourists. No restoration, just ruins on display. The UN condemned the move. Former residents saw it as a pressure campaign to force them into selling their properties. Andreas Charalambous was 14 years old when he left Varosha. He now works as an architect in Washington, D.C. "It ruined my life," he told US News. "My parents lost everything. They were in their 40s and they had to start from scratch." Their house is still standing, empty, behind barbed wire. Varosha's last normal day was 50 years ago. The next 4 cities are living theirs right now. Subscribe. You'll want to see how close the next one is to home. Varosha died in a single day. The next city has been dying more slowly, about 1,000 people a year. But the result is the same. At some point, the last reason to stay simply disappeared. Chapter 2. Venice, Italy. Last normal day stretched across 70 years. In 1951, 174,000 people lived in the historic centre of Venice. That had been the norm for centuries. A city on water, alive, loud, commercial. Then the whole world fell in love with it. After World War II, tourism began crowding out ordinary life. Fish stalls closed, replaced by shops selling souvenir masks. Families moved to the mainland, to Mestre, where apartments are cheaper, streets are wider, and you don't have to carry a stroller over bridges. Every year, the centre had a few more tourists and a few fewer people who actually called it home. By 2022, the historic centre's population dropped below 50,000 for the first time since the Middle Ages. By early 2024, below 49,000. By 2025, below 48,000. The city loses roughly 1,000 residents every year, and the trend isn't slowing down. In 2024, for the first time, the number of tourist beds in the historic centre surpassed the number of permanent residents. There are now more people sleeping here as guests than people who actually live here. Venice became the first city in the world to charge day trippers an entry fee, €5, introduced in 2024. Not to make money, but simply to slow the crowd. It didn't work. The people who left all tell a similar story. 29-year-old Marta, who grew up near the Rialto Bridge, moved to Milan after university. "I love my city," she says, "but there's no room for ambition here anymore." 40-year-old Lorenzo, a father of 2, moved to Mestre. "It's not as beautiful, but you can actually live there." 55-year-old Anna, who ran a fruit stand in Cannaregio, closed up and moved to Treviso. "At least there, people still buy apples." Venice doesn't have one last normal day. It has a small one every year, when another bakery closes, when the last child leaves a classroom, when one more family lists their apartment on Airbnb and moves to the mainland. UNESCO has warned that if the permanent population of the historic centre drops below 40,000, the city could lose its World Heritage designation. Right now, fewer than 8,000 people stand between Venice and that threshold. At the current rate of decline, that's less than 10 years away. Venice isn't dying from war or disaster. It's dying from love. Too many people wanted to come, and too few wanted to stay. The next city died from the opposite, from too much money that nobody knew how to hold on to. Chapter 3. Nauru, the Pacific Ocean. Last normal day, sometime around 2006. In 1975, Nauru had the second highest GDP per capita in the world, right after Saudi Arabia. Roughly $176,000 per person in today's money. On a tiny island of just 8 square miles in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, about 10,000 people lived, and most of them had no reason to work. They simply collected rent from the phosphate mines. Phosphate is a fertilizer that was as valuable as gold in the 20th century. Nauru's soil contained enormous deposits of it. Essentially, the entire interior of the island was one vast phosphate field, formed over millions of years from bird droppings layered over coral reef. A German geologist named Albert Ellis discovered this in 1899. Mining followed, first by the Germans, then the British, then the Australians, then the country's own government after independence in 1968. The money was overwhelming. Nauru's government abolished taxes, made education, healthcare, housing and transportation free for everyone. A police officer reportedly bought a Lamborghini and then sold it shortly after because he couldn't fit behind the wheel. The island filled up with the latest Land Rovers and Jeeps. They now rust in the jungle. By 2006, phosphate mining had essentially stopped. The reserves were gone. 80% of the island had been stripped and now resembled a moonscape. Jagged limestone pinnacles up to 50 feet tall, rising from bleached, acidic soil where nothing grows. Nauru's last normal day isn't a specific date. It's more of a moment, when the last phosphate ship left the harbor and there was nothing left on the island that produced any value. What happened next is documented. Attempts to invest the phosphate money in foreign real estate collapsed due to corruption. Attempts to turn the island into an offshore banking haven ended in money laundering scandals involving the Russian mafia and organizations including Al-Qaeda. Since 2004, Nauru has operated on a cash-only basis. One functioning bank, Australian. The government essentially survives on Australian subsidies in exchange for hosting refugee detention facilities. 97% of men and 94% of women in Nauru are overweight or obese. 45% of the population has diabetes. A head of cauliflower at the only grocery store costs 18 Australian dollars. A watermelon costs 61. Food is shipped in every 6 weeks. Nauru didn't die in a single day. Its last normal day stretched across several decades as the phosphate slowly ran out. People could see it coming and did nothing because the money was still there. When the money ran out, it turned out the island, as a livable place, was already gone. The next city died in a single night. No warning. Soviet state radio stayed silent for 36 hours, and the city was already beyond saving. Chapter 4. Pripyat, Ukraine. Last normal day, April 27, 1986. Pripyat was founded in 1970, specifically as a city for young nuclear engineers. New apartment blocks, a swimming pool, a movie theater, fishing on the river. The average resident was around 26 years old. By Soviet standards, the city had unusually good supply and unusually good pay. It was a city of people in a fashionable profession, and it knew it. On April 26, 1986, at 1:23 in the morning, during a planned test of a turbine generator at reactor number 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, an explosion destroyed the reactor. Radioactive material blew into the open air. Firefighters and first responders worked without knowing what they were dealing with. Some of them picked up chunks of graphite from the reactor core with their bare hands. Geiger counters maxed out and failed. Nobody told the truth about what had exploded. On the morning of April 27th, Pripyat was living its normal life. Children went to school. Fishermen sat on the riverbank a few miles from the burning reactor. People talked about the explosion in whispers. The radio said nothing. Some people that morning were going to school. Some were going fishing. Irina Stetsenko, 19 years old, just wanted to get married. The night before the wedding, April 26th, she was doing her nails on the balcony when, at 1:23 in the morning, the windows shook. It was as if a lot of planes were flying overhead. Everything was humming and the glass in the windows shook, she later recalled to the BBC. Her fiancé, Serhiy Lobanov, a 25-year-old engineer at the plant, woke up that morning expecting the best day of his life. It was sunny, exactly what a wedding day should be. He went out to buy flowers and saw soldiers in gas masks in the streets and trucks washing the roads with a foamy solution. But nobody explained anything. They got married. Late that night, there was a knock at the door. An evacuation train was leaving at 5 in the morning. Irina had no other clothes, only the dress she had planned to wear on the second day of celebrations, and shoes that had given her blisters. She put the dress back on and ran barefoot through dark streets and puddles to her mother's apartment to change. "I was in a wedding dress and I was running barefoot through the puddles," she said. From the train, they could see the glow of the reactor. Serhiy told the BBC, "It was as if you were looking into the eye of a volcano." The evacuation was announced as temporary. They left forever. A few days later, Irina found out she was pregnant. "I was scared to have a baby and scared to have an abortion," she recalled. Their daughter, Katya, was born healthy. Irina and Sergei now live in Berlin. They left Ukraine for the second time in their lives, this time because of the war. Irina has had both knees replaced. She believes the radiation weakened her bones. In 2016, Sergei had a heart attack, a week after visiting Pripyat. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon on April 27th, the city's public address system announced an evacuation. Residents were told to pack documents and 3 days' worth of belongings. They had 2 hours. 1,200 buses arrived for 49,000 people. People grabbed whatever was at hand: documents, a little clothing, children's toys, whatever seemed most important at the time. None of them thought it was the last time. Within weeks, it became clear that return was impossible. The exclusion zone, first 6 miles out, then 19, was officially sealed. Then the surrounding villages were evacuated. Then more. Pripyat has stood untouched since 1986. Textbooks are open to the page where students left them. Children's swings still move in the wind. The Ferris wheel in the amusement park never opened. It was test run a few days before the accident and then stopped permanently. Scientists estimate it will be safe to live in Pripyat again in no fewer than 24,000 years. In February of 2022, Russian forces entered the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Soldiers dug trenches directly in the Red Forest, a highly contaminated area. The full extent of damage to the radioactive waste storage facilities is still unknown. A city that already died in 1986 found itself at the center of a war. In all 4 stories so far, Varosha, Venice, Nauru, Pripyat, there is a single moment when normal life ends. Sometimes, even the people living through it don't see it. In the last city on this list, that moment is happening right now, every year, quietly. No explosion, no invasion, just nobody is having children. Chapter 5. Akita, Japan. Last normal day, still ongoing. Akita is a prefecture in northern Honshu, Japan's main island, known for its rice and sake. Mountains, old villages, a quiet pace of life. By the standards of rural Japan, a perfectly ordinary place. Just one number. The average age of a resident in Akita Prefecture is 57. That's the highest median age of any of Japan's 47 prefectures. In a country that is already the world's oldest major society, with a national median age of 49, Akita leads the way down. 9.3% of residents are children. 38.6% are over 65. On the baseball diamond next to one of Akita's schools, a veterans club holds practice. 33 players, all in their 70s. The school next door has 27 students. There are more players than there are children. This isn't a metaphor. This is the census. In 2023, in Fukushima, a neighboring prefecture, Yumoto Junior High School closed its doors. 2 students had attended, 15-year-olds Eita Sato and Aoi Hoshi. They were also the school's last graduating class. The school had been open for 76 years. "We heard rumors about the closure," Eita told Reuters, "but I didn't think it would actually happen. I was shocked." Japan currently has roughly 9 million vacant homes, called akiya. They make up 13.8% of the country's entire housing stock. In rural areas like Akita, the vacancy rate exceeds 20%. Municipal governments are literally giving houses away for free, hoping someone will come and stay. Few do. In 2015, Akita Prefecture launched a demographic recovery plan, healthcare subsidies for children, expanded daycare, student loan assistance. Not much has changed since. According to projections from Japan's National Institute of Population and Social Security Research, by 2045, Akita will have just 602,000 residents, 41% fewer than today. Half of them will be over 65. There is no single last normal day for Akita. Its last normal day is every school that gets shut down because there's nobody left to teach. Every house posted on an Akiya listing. Every young person who boards a morning train to Tokyo and doesn't come back. Thousands of those moments happen every year. It's frightening, says Koji Otomo, 87 years old, a retired teacher and captain of a veterans baseball team. With the population falling this steadily and this fast, there's simply no way to paint a picture of the future. The last normal day. In Varosha, there is a house with unpacked boxes still sitting in the hallway, 50 years later. The owners left on the morning of August 14, 1974. They took their documents and expected to be back in a week. They never came back. In Akita, there is also a house. The owners never left. Their children grew up, moved to Tokyo, and didn't come back. Then the parents died. The house stands empty. The municipality has put up a sign. Free, take it. Nobody takes it. The difference between these two houses is simply whether the owners knew they were saying goodbye for the last time. In Varosha, they knew it, in the moment they turned back for one last look from the doorstep. In Akita, they never knew. One day, it just turned out there was nobody left to come home to. Every city has its last normal day. Sometimes it's announced by an air raid siren. Sometimes by a school being locked for the final time. Sometimes by a silence that nobody notices has become permanent. Only one question remains. Are you already living in your city's last normal day? Or not yet?